You ever noticed when you're trying to do something new or even for the first time that you might get super frustrated because you can't figure it out right away? Or you have this expectation that you're supposed to do it perfectly, even though you have barely done it before? That's what I'm going to talk about today because this is a part of being a perfectionist. This is a perfectionistic behavior. And it's one that I have struggled with for a long time. In a little bit, I'm going to share with you an excerpt from my book, Free to Be, A Pathway to Inner Liberation, to share a story of exactly how this played out for me. But before I do, I'll share the current day example of how this shows up for me. So I am venturing on doing this podcast a little bit differently from how I used to do it before. For the most part, the last 4.5 years, I have had a guest on every week. It's very easy for me. It comes very naturally. There's just this back and forth flow that goes on. I can bounce off the other person's energy. I'm very good at asking questions and interviewing. I'm good at knowing just the right time to add in a bit of my own experience or story. And it just flows for me. I've enjoyed it. I did in the past do a handful, 5, 10, maybe solo episodes before. I hated doing those because I'm not good at doing solo ones. I hate staring at the screen and just talking to myself. It feels very weird and uncomfortable. When I'm showing up solo, I realized that I tend to go into this energy of perfection and proving, like I have to prove to all of you that I'm some type of expert or I've got my shit all together. It goes into this performing, this performative, perfecting, proving energy, which at the end of the day is very much a part of being a perfectionist. Moving forward, I've made a decision that I want to do more solo podcasts. If anything, I probably will have more solo than guests. I have to get better at doing the solo ones. I want to get better at doing the solo ones. I want to feel more natural at it, the way that I do when I have a guest. My go to is to want to stop and restart because I'm not happy with the way it's coming out. I think that there's this unspoken expectation from all of you that I have to sound a certain way or be a certain way or say things in a certain way. It's crazy that I go into this place. At the end of the day, I am not as practiced or as experienced at doing the solo ones. And it's something that I have to work at. But I still have this expectation that I'm just going to show up and be great at doing the solo ones because my gosh, I've been doing this podcast for 4.5 years, almost 5 years, and I should know what I'm doing by now. I've done almost 260 episodes. I should be really good at this by now. You hear even that kind of expectation and pressure that I'm putting on myself. At the end of the day, where I really want to get to, and I think I have alluded to it a little bit in a previous episode, that I want to come from a place of where I'm actually just showing up, trying to have a conversation with you, which is tricky because I'm literally just talking into the screen and staring at myself. It's hard to imagine that I'm having a conversation with you even though I know that I am. I know you're out there listening, and I want to bring value to you, to share my experience, strength, and hope so that if you can resonate with what I'm saying, if you have experienced something similar, this can help you. I'm going to share an antidote, tip, or tool that you can use to help you with this. What I'm speaking to, besides perfectionism, is a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. Perfectionists will often have a fixed mindset, which means that you just expect yourself to arrive at this level of perfection and just be able to get something done right away perfectly without having to grow, without a growth curve. The growth mindset is just that you have a mindset that when you're learning something new or you're doing something difficult, that it will take time and there's a growth curve to it. So that's one thing to understand. Now I'm going to share with you a little bit about what I wrote in my book, just reading a little short excerpt for you. And then I'll share one other story about where this pattern developed for me, starting from my book, Free to Be, A Pathway to Inner Liberation. I write, I'm someone who's been consistently hard on myself for most of my life, believing that I should do everything perfectly. When I first started teaching high school back in 1994, I expected I would be a perfect teacher on day one. When I struggled to relate to my students or couldn't teach a concept in a way that they could comprehend, I beat myself up. I never allowed myself to have a learning curve. I assumed that I should know everything immediately and be able to do it all perfectly. There were so many days I cried all the way home from work, vowing that I would not return the next day. Not only did I expect that I should be able to do new things perfectly from day one, but I also put a lot of pressure on myself to do more and be more. It was imperative that my house look perfect. I had to be the perfect mom, daughter, wife, and friend. I tried so hard to be perfect at everything, working out, eating right, managing gluten, dairy, caffeine, and all of those things. It was easy for me to go into all or nothing thinking. If I didn't do everything perfectly, I would give up and do none of it. Then I would beat myself up that I failed. The issue really is that it's about being able to find a middle ground, finding the gray or finding balance. It may require that the pendulum swing back and forth for a while before it rests comfortably in the middle. One last part that I'll share with you from the book is the internal pressure I put on myself was enough to make anyone go mad. I was exhausted from being at war with myself. I wanted someone to free me from my mind and my thoughts. What I didn't realize was that I wanted to be free from the pattern of so readily and easily giving my power away. Oh, big deep breath on that one. Can any of you relate to that? We are walking around putting so much pressure on ourselves. And for most of us, I'm going to guess that this pattern came from our childhood. And for me, it absolutely was. When I was around 10 years old, I went and tried out for the lead role of Snow White. So I tried out for Snow White. And before I tried out for this play, I was used to singing and dancing in my kitchen, in my living room, and performing for my mom. And because she was my mom, she cheered me on. Great, you're doing great. You're so good. So naturally, I believed that I could sing and that there was absolutely no reason in my mind that I shouldn't try out for Snow White. When I did, after I sang, my teacher told me, and I was only 10, just a little girl, like he said, not in these words, but paraphrasing, girl, you can't sing. You are tone deaf. And you would do much better. You would be better suited if you go and work on the props with others. I was devastated. I was heartbroken. And there were other experiences in my life that followed this one that had a similar type of outcome. And what I learned was that I can't fail. I can't be a failure. So that's why I just tried really hard at the things that I was good at, like getting straight A's and becoming president of my class when I was a junior in high school, or playing softball. I was really good at softball. So I excelled there. I still put a ton of pressure that I couldn't make a mistake. We have these experiences early on in life that we end up attaching a meaning to or making an interpretation about the experience. And in my case, it was I was wrong, I was bad, I couldn't fail, and I had to be perfect. I had to do everything right, do it right away. Now, you might have a similar type of story, and I would love to hear your story. If you want to leave me a comment on YouTube and share with me your experience, or you can email me. My email is kim@kimgrosscoaching.com. It's very simple. I would truly love to have you share with me. It came from me. Now, what is the solution? What do we do about this? There's two things. One is practicing and working at adopting the mindset of a growth mindset over fixed mindset. Just becoming aware of that will start to shift things for you. The second thing is, and this is what Melody Beatty writes about in The Language of Letting Go, she says that we have to be able to give ourselves compassion and accept ourselves and love ourselves where we are right now today. The antidote to this behavior we carry out is compassion, acceptance, and loving ourselves. Now, you might be saying, okay, Kim, that's all well and good. That's easy to say, but it's much harder to implement. I hear you. It was so incredibly hard for me to give that to myself. It was so hard for me to own the part of myself that was less than perfect. So I'm not going to say that it's a magic pill that you're going to take and all of a sudden you're going to be able to start having compassion for yourself. You're going to start loving yourself and accepting yourself. Nope, that's not the case. But we have to start somewhere. And the more that you do it, the more that you cultivate it, the more it will grow, it will compound. And in the beginning, you can ask someone to help you with it. If you have a loved one that can offer you compassion, acceptance, give you a hug, tell you it's okay, tell you that you don't have to be perfect, that you'll get it in time, then ask that person to help you through it. What's possible when you can start to shift these behaviors and unhook from this pattern is, I will say one thing first, add a caveat to it, that you may continue throughout your life to see these patterns creep up from time to time or over and over again. The difference will be that you will be way more aware of it. you'll be able to catch yourself and then pause and shift into using the tools or tips you learn here on this podcast or anywhere else. What's possible is more freedom because you start to release yourself from this perfectionistic pattern as you start to have more freedom and realize that you don't have to do things perfectly right away. You will start to build your confidence and step outside of your comfort zone more. Instead of playing small, you will take those risks. Even for me, coming back full circle to what I said in the beginning about doing solo podcasts, the more that I practice and give myself grace and compassion to do it messy. Some of these solo ones might suck. They might be terrible. You might say, I absolutely love listening to Kim, maybe even more so now than I used to because she's showing up messy, imperfect, not having it all together. And she's actually sounding more authentic and she's being more of herself. So, therefore, I like listening to Kim even more now. That could be. Let me know that. Share with me that if you, again, leave me a comment if you're watching me on YouTube. Why is it that on podcasts you can't leave comments? I don't know if you can. I think you'd have to go to YouTube and leave me a comment, or you have to email me. I guess you could, you know what, by leaving a review, say, I really enjoy Kim more now than I used to. This is what's possible for you. And this is what I want for you to have more freedom by being able to unhook from perfectionistic tendencies and patterns. Just think about how much pressure you're putting on yourself every single day when you stay stuck in perfectionism. You expect yourself to do things perfectly, immediately, all the time, right away. It's such enormous pressure. I want you to have freedom from that type of internal pressure. As always, I really appreciate you being here and listening. And if you did find that this episode was helpful and you benefited from it, then you could leave me that review, or you can let another person know about this podcast and this particular episode. Just share it with them and say, listen, I know that you too struggle with perfectionistic tendencies. You got to listen to this episode, it'll really help you. And I just want to say that we're all in this together. And I know what it's like to struggle with perfectionism and people pleasing. I'm just really happy you're here. And I will see you next time on Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists. Have a great one, everybody.